Welcome back to Objective 6 of Chapter 10 in our 3B1 series. In this objective, we'll describe typical chemical feed systems, including pot feeders, continuous feed with day tanks, and continuous feed with pump tanks. So to begin with, let's check out some chemical feeders that are often known as shot and pot feeders, or they can also be called bypass feeders and drip feeders. Now the idea here is with these chemical feeders is that the chemical itself is fed into either the feed water line or the return lines of a hot water system. So we're talking here like a hydronic system, and that of course is a closed loop system in that what goes out comes back. There'd be very minimal makeup requirements for makeup water here based upon leakage, testing, things like that. Now, the first one that we want to discuss is our bypass feeder or our shot feeder. Now these ones are also known as slipstream devices in that they're placed into the line of our feed water or our return line here, and by opening this valve with an orifice plate in the center, we can control how much flow will pass through our feeder and how much flow will bypass the feeder. So hence the term a bypass feeder. Now obviously not all of the fluid in that line is going to pass through the feeder. It will depend upon what chemical injection rates we want to inject. Now this particular type of arrangement of feeder is ideal for when we're using briquettes or ball form chemicals. And briquettes or balls, they're basically just solid versions of chemicals or solid bricks of chemical that we can put in, and they'll slowly dissolve over time. It's a pretty simple arrangement, as you can see, in that inside of the vessel there is a lined basket, and we simply drop those solid chemicals onto the basket, and as the water passes up and over them, we get our slow dissolving action, and then it leaks into our system and away it goes. The other arrangement for that is a gravity drip feeder, and you do often see these on hydronic systems. These are basically installed vertically onto our piping line, and these ones via a siphon or a funnel, we add in our liquid chemical or powdered chemical. By then opening our filling valve, that liquid or powder is going to move down into the vessel that will contain water, and then will slowly move down and into our feed line. We can see at the very bottom of this diagram we have a regulating valve, and that of course will roughly control how much we are injecting over time. So you wouldn't see either of these on a high pressure steam system, but we definitely see them on something like a hydronic system, for example. Okay, a more common thing that we'll see is something called day tanks or pump tanks. So on high pressure systems, this is what we typically use first. Day tanks are basically tanks that last a day, hence their name, a day tank. Now the idea of this is that chemical via a pump is going to be continuously fed into the boiler. However, because it's called a day tank, we only batch enough chemical to last a day, hence the name. Now the advantages over doing it in this way is that we get a good flexibility with regards to our chemical feed. It's easy to control our residuals, less chance of scale or corrosion, reduction in chemical swings, and it's also generally safer handling for our operators due to the chemicals that we are using. Now, there is a problem, however, with day tanks, which in some ways contradicts one of the advantages of the day tanks. And this is uniform concentration in a day tank is very important. Now, what I mean by this, and also why this is a disadvantage, is because it incorporates human error, or I should say operator error. The idea is, let's say for example, I am going to batch a chemical day tank. I test the concentration and I now batch enough chemical with enough water to get my concentration. And I've batched it just right. Now let's say that the next person that comes along and batches the next set, they batch it slightly weak. Well, if it's slightly weak now on the mix because something went slightly off or it was mismeasured, then we'd need to increase the injection rates to offset the weak solution. Now the next person comes along and they batch it, and now it's too concentrated, it's too strong. Well, now we'd have to come back again and decrease the injection rate on the pump. So what we can see happening by this is we get swinging values of chemical in terms of our residuals in our boiler because our concentration's going up and down, up and down. And this is all because we're not getting uniform concentration. So really, the only disadvantage to doing this is actually making sure that when we test these things and we do batch our values or batch our concentrations, they are uniform across throughout all of operators. Now, of course, that leads itself to everybody following the same SOP, everybody measuring it the same way, everybody determining the same concentration. And that's really important. If we don't get it right, it will cause problems. Now, another disadvantage that's not really mentioned, and it is mentioned on the advantages, however, it says safer handling of the chemicals. Well, if you're handling it every day, is that safer than if you never had to handle it? I would disagree. Continuous pump tanks, you never have to handle the chemical. The water consultant rep does that for you. So in my opinion, that's a lot safer than the day tanks, even though they do state there is safer handling of the chemicals. The reason why they state this is because the chemicals are diluted with water. Hence, as a chemical, it's not as harmful to you as a neat or a concentrated one. Okay, so here's a typical arrangement of day tanks. Now you can see here that we've got 3 totes basically. These are typically either plastic or stainless steel, and they contain then our chemical diluted with water. And we have 3 typical examples here: a phosphate and a sludge conditioner. That'd be an orthophosphate. We have our sulfite in the middle for our oxygen scavenger, and then we have our neutralizing and filming amine, i.e. a blended amine. And you can see here that each station has 2 pumps. One pump would be the run pump and the other pump would be the standby pump. And typically we'd swap those around every month so we get even run hours on both. You can also see inside the vessel we have an agitator. This is simply a little electric motor with an impeller at the bottom that keeps our chemical stirred up and agitated when we're batching and mixing, so we don't precipitate out and form any deposits on the bottom. All of the outlet lines then will go off to wherever it is they are being injected, i.e. either in the deaerator or into the feed water pump suction line as shown here for our phosphate. Now, the next arrangement is similar in its arrangement in that these are called pump tanks. Now, we're still using tanks with chemical inside it, we're still injecting it chemically continuously, and we're still using pumps to do it with run and standby pumps. The only real difference between continuous feed systems and I should say continuous feed system day tanks and continuous feed system pump tanks is that in the pump tank arrangement, the totes are going to contain neat chemical, i.e. concentrated chemical that will be delivered by your chemical rep that will generally be coming from the water consultant, whether it be Nalco Champion, GE Betts, whoever it may be. So these chemicals are much more concentrated. Once again, these totes are typically either plastic or stainless steel, and the arrangement's in the exact same idea. Now this one for my money is a lot better because as the operator, we never have to touch the chemical directly unless of course it leaks. The chemical reps come in, they attach hoses on, they fill up your chemical totes and away you go. It's pretty straightforward. We then just manipulate the pumps to get our injection rates right. Okay, so here's a typical pump tank arrangement, and this particular arrangement is a continuous feed system using pump tanks. So in other words, our 3 plastic totes here, and again these totes are just the standard ones, sulfate, phosphate and amine. These are all filled up by those green hoses you can see attached to the top of the totes, and that's what the chemical rep would attach to fill up your chemical totes. You can see then there are the little chemical injection pumps in front of each tote, and that's what we'd adjust as the operator to adjust the injection rates to our boiler, to the deaerator, wherever abouts it's going. Of course, the chemical rep does need to come along at predetermined periods of times, and that's why you'll often see graduations marked on the side of the totes so that we know when to order more chemical. Okay, so what's pumping this chemical is simply a pump, and these pumps are typically either plunger pumps, which is a type of reciprocating pump, or we also sometimes see centrifugal pumps, such as the one pictured here bottom left, which is a Milton-Roy centrifugal pump that's used for high pressure chemical injections, and this is usually set up to a VFD, so the VFD can either increase or decrease to change our injection rates as required by our changing water chemistry. Now, the idea here of a plunger pump is that we basically have a pump with 2 check balls in that we're only pulling fluid in on the suction stroke and discharging it on the discharge stroke, and never the twain shall meet. And if you look at the animation, you can see how that works with the placement of the check valves. The types of pump that we're using here is a positive displacement pump, and it's referred to as a plunger pump, in that the seal in the pump is stationary. In the piston pump, the seal moves with the piston. Now, with regards to adjusting this pump, we can adjust either our frequency or our stroke length. Now, the frequency is simply the rate at which the pump strokes, as the definition of frequency is the number of cycles per second. So therefore, if we increase frequency, the pump will pump faster. When you listen to these things, they sound clicky, i.e. click, 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 as the pump's moving along. If we dialed up the frequency, those clicks are going to be a lot closer together. Click, 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 click. As it moves up and up and up, it's pumping more chemical. Now, the other adjustment we can make is stroke length. And the stroke of the piston is basically going to push more volume per stroke. Now, when we adjust these things, we'll typically adjust only one or the other. So, for example, in our Synovis Power Lab, our pumps are typically set at 30-30. That basically means that we're talking 30 on the stroke and 30 on the frequency. If we wanted to increase or decrease that, I would suggest to you adjust the frequency first. But ideally, we always want to try and keep it balanced with regards to frequency and stroke. So, i.e., frequency and stroke are the same number ideally. If we start increasing our frequency and then we max the frequency out, we then start backing the frequency down as we back the stroke up until it evens out. Let's say, for example, we go from 30-30 and we eventually work our way up to 50-50. All of these injection rates, of course, are going to be determined by your residuals from your water testing. Now, the idea regarding these pumps is a typical setup here in that we have run and standby. And again, this depends upon how much money we've invested in our plant and whether we do even have run and standby pumps. It's typical practice to have them, and that way if one pump is down or requires maintenance, we can simply have the other one to go. You can see here another photograph of a typical arrangement of a continuous feed system using stainless steel pump tanks, and the pumps in front of that, those aren't plunger pumps, those ones are centrifugal pumps. You can tell simply by looking at the yellow casing there at the bottom of these pumps. Another type of pump that's often used for chemical injections is a diaphragm pump, and these are generally small pumps that only put out limited discharge pressures, so we only typically see them being used on low pressure applications. Once again, it is a type of positive displacement pump, and you can see from the animation here how a flexible diaphragm is moved by an eccentric piston moving back and forth as it flexes the diaphragm and pushes the fluid through, and it will once again pass through our check balls on the suction and the discharge side. The same as our plunger pumps, the speed and stroke can once again be adjusted. Okay, that's basically it for Objective 6. Very straightforward. So let's check out some typical sorts of questions you'll get for Objective 6, and then we can wrap up this entire chapter. So for our first one, boiler chemicals that are batched daily utilise the what method? Gravity feeder, bypass feeder, day tank, or pump tank? Well, the answer's in the question. If you're batching them daily, i.e. every day, then it must be a day tank. Simple as that. For our next one, what type of pump is commonly used for chemical injections into boilers? Key word here, commonly used. Just think about what's in the Synovis lab, and that is a plunger pump. Don't get the plunger pump confused with the piston pump. They're both positive displacement pumps, but the plunger pump has a stationary seal and the piston pump has a seal that moves with the piston. That's the big difference between those two types of pumps. Next one. Which type of chemical feeder adds chemical in solid or briquette form? Is that the closed bypass feeder, the closed gravity feeder, the continuous feed with pump tank, or the continuous feed with day tanks? So what was that diagram that I showed you that had the basket in it that we basically slipstream our fluid through? It was our bypass feeder. A little bit of a tricky question, that one, as you had to remember the diagram. And I also encourage you to possibly amend your diagram in figure 4 of your textbook to make it look like I did on my slide, i.e. containing the basket with the solid chemical inside of it. That way, when you're reviewing your notes here, it'll hit you in the face every time you open this page and drill it into your head. Okay, our next one. Uneven concentrations in chemical batching is a disadvantage with what type of chemical injection method? Is that closed bypass feeder, closed gravity feeder, continuous feed with pump tank, or continuous feed with day tanks? Well, the one we have to continually keep batching is the one we have to batch on the daily, i.e. it's going to be our continuous feed with day tanks. And why is this a disadvantage? Because if our concentration's uneven, we'll have to keep increasing and then decreasing our pump, and that's going to eventually lead to us swinging our chemical residuals within inside of our boiler. You do still see day tanks being used in plants, but they're not as common as the pump tank arrangement. That one's more straightforward because there's less chance of human error. Next one. Plunger pumps may be adjusted by frequency or something for chemical injection. Well, if you've ever done this in the power lab, this should hopefully be pretty straightforward. Are we adjusting speed, volume, stroke, or bore? We are adjusting the stroke, which then affects the volume. So be careful there with answer B. C is what they're looking for. It's the stroke or the frequency. If you've never adjusted those pumps, then next time you're in the Synovis lab, take a look at the face of those pumps. Okay, that's it for the end of chapter 10. A fairly big one, and certainly lots to wrap your head around there with regards to water treatment, as water treatment can be tricky subjects for people. So as always, at the end of the chapter, check out the end of chapter questions on page 28 of your textbook, as they often get turned into multiple choice questions for the provincials. Make sure you check out the D2L quiz and also the D2L chapter assignment to see a good selection of multiple choice questions that you're possibly and likely to see on the unit tests, midterms, and our finals. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed that one and you found it interesting. Take care, give it a good hard review, and then when you're ready, come back and see me for the next water treatment chapter, and we'll check out number 11, where we'll basically look at external water treatment. So see you back for that one soon. Take care.